Welcome back to Kindness Stories, the place where we believe that even the smallest acts of compassion can change the world. Thank you for being part of our family where real stories touch hearts and remind us of the power of goodness. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share this story with someone who needs a little hope today. Our story begins in a small town that was just like any other place you'd find tucked away. In a corner of the countryside, rows of simple houses, children riding bicycles down cracked sidewalks, neighbors gossiping over fences, and the scent of blooming flowers mixing with the smell of rain-soaked soil after an afternoon shower. But it wasn't the town's appearance that made it remarkable. It was what happened there one spring that turned it into the setting for an extraordinary act of kindness and courage. There was a teacher named Mary Thompson who had taught at the local middle school for nearly 15 years. Mary was the kind of teacher every student wished for. She had a way of making the most boring lessons feel like an adventure. She would laugh at students' jokes, listen when they had problems, and make even the shyest kids feel like they mattered. But behind her warm smile was a quiet struggle that almost no one knew about. Mary lived alone in a small 2-bedroom cottage on the edge of town. She had moved there to take care of her aging parents many years ago. After they passed away, she stayed in the same house, finding comfort in the memories and in the garden she lovingly tended. But living alone had its challenges. The house needed repairs she couldn't afford. Her salary was modest, and after paying bills and buying groceries, there was never much left. Despite her own hardships, Mary never let her personal struggles interfere with her students' lives. Among her students was a boy named Jacob. Jacob was 14, lanky, with unruly brown hair and eyes that looked like they held secrets he was too afraid to tell. He was quiet in class, always sitting in the back, head down, scribbling in his notebook. Mary had noticed him right from the first day of school. She saw how he flinched when someone spoke too loudly, or how he looked over his shoulder as if expecting something terrible to happen. One rainy afternoon, after the final bell rang, Mary found Jacob sitting alone in the classroom long after everyone had gone. His shoulders were hunched, and his notebook lay open in front of him. Mary walked over and sat beside him. Jacob, is everything all right? She asked gently. He shrugged, not meeting her eyes. She didn't push. Instead, she just sat there in silence, her presence offering a sense of safety that words couldn't provide. After a few minutes, he whispered, "I don't want to go home." That was all it took. Mary knew something wasn't right. Over the next few weeks, she stayed late every day, waiting with Jacob until he felt ready to go home. She brought him snacks, sometimes his favorite peanut butter cookies, and slowly, bit by bit, he began to open up. Jacob's father had lost his job the year before and had turned to drinking to numb the disappointment. His mother worked double shifts at the diner, but couldn't make enough to keep the family afloat. The weight of his father's anger fell on Jacob's narrow shoulders. The bruises were always hidden beneath long sleeves and jeans, but Mary saw the signs. One Friday afternoon, a group of boys cornered Jacob in the hallway. They were bigger, meaner, and loved to pick on anyone who seemed weaker. They shoved him into the lockers, mocking him, calling him names. Mary arrived just in time to see Jacob on the floor, clutching his books to his chest while the bullies laughed. Mary didn't shout. She didn't threaten. Instead, she knelt down beside Jacob, placed a comforting hand on his shoulder, and helped him gather his things. She looked the bullies straight in the eye, her voice calm but firm, and said, "You're better than this. I believe you can be better than this." The boys were stunned. They had expected anger or punishment, not kindness. They walked away, puzzled and silent. Word of what happened spread through the school like wildfire. Some teachers thought Mary was foolish for not punishing the boys more severely. Others admired her courage. But what mattered most was what happened next. One of the bullies, a boy named Brian, showed up at Mary's classroom the following week. With his head hung low, "I'm sorry, Miss Thompson," he mumbled. Mary didn't lecture him. She didn't scold. She simply invited him to sit and talk. They spoke about his home life, about his own struggles, and about how sometimes hurting others felt like the only way to make sense of his pain. Mary listened without judgment, and for the first time, Brian felt heard. Meanwhile, Jacob's situation at home worsened. One evening, he didn't show up to school the next day. Mary felt a knot tighten in her chest. She called his house, but no one answered. She waited by the phone all night, hoping for some news. The next morning, she made a decision. She drove to Jacob's house, a small, rundown place on the outskirts of town. When she knocked on the door, Jacob's father answered, his eyes bloodshot, the stench of alcohol clinging to him. Mary could see Jacob peeking out from behind a torn curtain. She knew she couldn't fix the family's problems overnight, but she also knew she couldn't walk away. I'm worried about Jacob, she said softly. He needs to be in school. He needs to feel safe. The man scoffed, dismissing her concerns. But Mary stood her ground. She spoke of Jacob's potential, of his dreams of becoming an artist, of the light in his eyes when he talked about drawing. She spoke until the father, weary and ashamed, relented enough to let Jacob pack a bag and leave with her. Mary didn't have much, but she gave Jacob a safe place to stay. She turned her guest room into a small studio where he could draw and paint to his heart's content. She cooked him warm meals and made sure he knew he wasn't alone anymore. The town soon found out what she had done. Some praised her. Others whispered behind her back, wondering why she would burden herself with someone else's child. But Mary didn't care. All she cared about was that Jacob was safe, that he was smiling again, that he was finally free to dream. One day, the boys who had bullied Jacob approached Mary in the schoolyard. They asked if they could help. Mary looked at them, surprised. Help with what? She asked. With Jacob. One of them said, we want to make it right. So, they did. They spent afternoons helping him with homework, bringing him snacks, even defending him when anyone dared to mock him. They became his protectors, his unexpected friends. The transformation amazed everyone. The boys who once spread fear now spread kindness. As the months passed, Mary faced her own struggles. Her savings dwindled. Her old car broke down, and the repairs on her house became impossible to ignore. Yet, she never let Jacob feel like he was a burden. She took on tutoring jobs after school, sold some of her parents' old furniture, and somehow made it work. Then came the day that changed everything. The school principal announced that due to budget cuts, they would have to let some teachers go. Mary's name was on the list. The news broke her heart. She knew losing her job meant losing the home she had built for Jacob. She sat alone in her classroom that evening, staring at the empty desks, tears welling up in her eyes. But she wasn't alone for long. Jacob and his friends walked in, carrying a small box. Miss Thompson, Jacob said, his voice trembling, we can't let you go. You've done so much for us. Now it's our turn. Inside the box was a collection of crumpled bills and coins, money they had earned from mowing lawns, washing cars, and doing odd jobs around town. It wasn't much, but it was enough to remind Mary that she wasn't alone in this fight. Word of what Mary had done spread beyond the school. Parents, former students, and neighbors came together. They organized bake sales, car washes, and fundraisers. Local businesses donated supplies and money. Before long, they had enough to help Mary keep her home and continue caring for Jacob. One evening, as Mary sat on her porch watching Jacob sketch under the golden glow of the setting sun, she felt a warmth in her heart that no amount of hardship could extinguish. She realized that kindness, once planted, grows roots deeper than any hatred or hardship could ever reach. Years passed, and Jacob blossomed under Mary's care. He won art competitions, earned a scholarship to a prestigious art school, and always credited Mary for believing in him when no one else did. He never forgot the woman who gave him a second chance at life. When Jacob stood on the stage at his graduation, he looked out into the audience and saw Mary, tears in her eyes, clapping with pride. He dedicated his first gallery show to her, calling it the Garden of Kindness, a tribute to the seed she had sown in his heart and in the hearts of everyone she touched. And the boys who once bullied him, they grew into young men who carried Mary's lessons with them wherever they went. They became youth mentors, coaches, and teachers themselves, guiding others away from the same mistakes they had once made. Mary's story reminds us that kindness is never wasted. It may take root in ways we can't see at first, but eventually it blooms, transforming not just one life, but entire communities. So, if you ever feel like your kindness doesn't matter, remember Mary Thompson. Remember how one act of courage and compassion changed the course of so many lives. Remember that in a world that can sometimes feel harsh and unkind, there are still people like Mary and like you who can make a difference. One small act at a time, asterisk asterisk.